Chucky. And I'm your friend to the end. Heidi fucking ho. Ha, ha, ha.
And welcome back to Chucky Queers. I'm Joe.
And I'm Trace, and we're talking season 1, episode 5 of Chucky, Little Lies, which, oh boy, everyone, we've got the return of Tiffany Valentine and Nika.
I'm sure she has a last name. I
know. I don't know her last name. I think it's Pierce. I think it's Nika Pierce.
It is Pierce. Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like this is the moment that people have been waiting for. Last week, we suggested that it might only show up as some kind of glorified cameo, either in the beginning or the end. So I was surprised to find out that they've got like kind of a full-on scene. It's unrelated, of course, to everything else. But
it's interesting because I was watching this and I was like, okay, like if they're coming back, like this is when we're leaving the. If you've never seen a film in this franchise before, you might want to know something before walking into this episode.
Mm-hmm.
They do a pretty good job of like catching you up on Curse and Cult of Chucky.
Yeah, agreed.
Which again, by having a hostage in the room, which is just great, and then immediately dispatch.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I want more of Tiffany and Nika because I love Jennifer Tilly and I love Fiona Dourif. But I think this is a good way to be like, hey, let's just have this one scene, and then we'll bring them back to do more stuff later.
Yeah, because presumably, I mean, they're staying at some kind of motel. It definitely gave me Bride of Chucky vibes with the
that bed. Yes,
I would have loved an overhead mirror just to like really sell it, but that's fine. I mean, the fact that they're in a motel either means that they're on the run because this does take place only 2 weeks after the event of Cults.
Yes.
So I don't know. Curse.
No, you're right. Cult. You're right. Damn it.
It's a problem with having very similar titles for these last two films, but so I guess they're either on the run or we might assume that they're on their way to Hackensack.
Yeah, I mean, again, remember, we have technically that in the first scene of the pilot, like that is Tiffany dropping the doll off at the garage sale. So
right.
I wonder if they're just on the outskirts of town. I like that they tell us that we are 2 weeks out because I think it gives more immediacy to whatever Chucky's plan is at the end of Cult, because we don't really know what it is outside of I'm Horcruxing my soul.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it's an interesting deviation from a traditional possession. Like, I wasn't sure if Nika was just going to be gone and we'd have Fiona Dourif doing an impression of her father for the rest of the time. So I like that she's still going to get to play traditional Nika, but then still get to do an impersonation of her father because it's quite entertaining.
We're Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hiding, and it's really fun.
I like
also
that.
do. Okay. Yeah, I also do love though that she returns to being a paraplegic when she is back in her own body, but then when Chucky takes over, she is not.
Yeah, that was a helpful part of the flashback to the film because I was like, oh, I don't remember how that happens, but I do think it's important, especially for people who haven't seen the film, like, oh yeah, okay, this is a disabled character. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I feel like we're at a time and place now where it's kind of wish fulfillment that we could have actually had a disabled actor playing this role, but due to the circumstances of how this all came about, I'm glad that we're at least acknowledging that Nika is a disabled character.
Well, yeah, but also, and now that we know that, okay, well, she has to be able to walk at some point. Like, I know that wasn't really a factor when Curse of Chucky was made, but at least like they've kind of sort of remedied it by being like, well, we need this character to walk at some point. Right. So like we can't actually hire a disabled character, a disabled actor. But and I mean, we kind of jump to the end here because the build up to this scene are flashbacks to Chucky meeting Tiffany. And Joe, it was so funny. I had watched this episode a few days after watching Venom Let There Be Carnage. And Venom Let There Be Carnage opens with a flashback scene in which an actor portraying a young Woody Harrelson is dubbed over by actual Woody Harrelson.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't always work.
I really hate this. I'm thinking of like Lin Shaye in Insidious Chapter 2. I'm thinking of the opening scene of The First Wives Club. It is really bad. I don't like it, and I don't like it here. No. I don't like Brad Dourif voicing this young Brad Dourif lookalike. The only thing that saves this for me is the fact that, so we get the reveal that, they pick up a girl. He meets a girl that he thinks is Tiffany.
Right.
They pick up another girl, but oops, it's a switcheroo, like the other girl's Tiffany. And after this girl murders girl number one, she then gets the Tiffany voice, as if like killing this person,
it awakens her inner Tiffany.
Yeah, it brings her out. And then she again, it's not good. Like the dubbing isn't even good.
It's pretty bad. Yeah.
But that moment where I was like, okay, like this is kind of selling in the sense that I'm like, I think the show knows this is bad. So it's doing this ridiculous thing with Tiffany's voice.
Yeah, when you told me that offline, I thought maybe you were being a little bit generous, but I can also buy it, if only because so much of the film series and also the TV show is very self-aware often of what it's doing. So I wouldn't be surprised to learn that that's the truth, but also it just doesn't really work in the episode. Like I find it so distracting to watch because it doesn't match up very well. And as a result, I was often taken out of a lot of those moments, but I did like the subversion that we think this first girl is going to be Tiffany, and then it's secretly the second one, because that made it a bit more exciting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of subversive reveals. I mean, even with Bree, who we learn is like, going through stage 4 cancer in this episode. It's like, what did we say 2 episodes ago? We were like, oh, maybe she's in a secret lesbian relationship with like
she
Mika.
Still could be. She still could be. I'm holding out hope.
It's kind of like that's not as interesting.
That's
reveal,
not as fun.
But yeah, exactly. But maybe it'll be a thing where it's like, I don't know, it'll give her more agency or something. Because unfortunately, she doesn't really get much to do in this episode outside of like kind of hold back Devin Sawa a little bit. But
yeah, I did also like the reveal. I mean, we knew that Logan, which is this version of the twin
right,
this version of the twin, the other twin, Jake's non-father, his uncle, we knew that he was forcing things on Junior. Like he was very much the dad who doesn't understand that his child is trying desperately to not be a track star, doesn't deal well with the pressure and so on. It was interesting to see that the 2 twin brothers are actually more alike than we realized, because Logan clearly has a temper that comes out here. And so I do like that we're still getting some of this interpersonal family drama stuff, because as I mentioned, I was afraid that as we start to get into more of the film universe that we were going to lose sight of some of the smaller stories in the TV show. So yeah, I'm glad that we're still keeping some stuff percolating with the family. And I think there could be some good emotional beats with Bree having to break this hard reveal. Like I'll be interested to see if she dies out before the end of the season.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing too, because I mean we're not at a point yet, I think, where we can really start talking about what does season 2 look like, because we still don't know where this season is going, which is exciting.
No. Although the numbers are good enough that we can hope that Syfy and USA Network are going to bet on this dark horse again.
And I think word of mouth is positive enough too. Like I
think so. Yeah,
I think we'll be fine, but
who knows? We're in a queer horror silo as well, where it's like everyone we know is watching it and loving it, and it's like, okay, but how
it's the 10 people that we know?
How are the straight people doing it? Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, bringing it back even though to like so we have this family dynamic, but we have more like development on the Lexi, Devin, Jake front, which P.S. Probably one of the best moments of physical comedy is Lexi like busting the shit out of new Chucky. I'm sorry, Tommy, which is a good Child's Play 2 callback.
Yeah, Lexi does get a lot of fun things to do in here. And I like, again, that we're continuing to develop her character. We're giving her a bit more nuance and a bit more character depth. Seeing her having to deal with her mother's emotional and verbal abuse in this episode did a lot, I think, to redeem this character. So I feel like stay tuned every week. I'm going to give you updates on how I'm feeling about Lexi.
No, I think you're right in saying that, though. I mean, it's one of those things, too, where it's like, okay, none of what she did in those first 3 episodes is excused.
No.
But it's definitely a case, though, now where it's like, okay, clearly it's not the fact that she has a beef with Jake. It is, it is just that he was the easiest target.
Yeah.
But also, I think her mom does kind of like a weird heel turn. Like, obviously, it's obvious that her mom has not been like the best mom to her. She's not the nicest mom to her. But I feel like she almost dips like too far into like, wow, she is being uncharacteristically nasty to everyone in this episode.
Yeah, the last couple of episodes, I would argue, because some of the interactions in the hospital were pretty severe. And then here, when she's like, not just, oh, I'm going to ground you, which seems reasonable if you think that Lexi burned down the house. Okay, sure. But then the way that she's like, oh, I want you to stay in a smoke-filled room. Like, oh, I don't think you actually care about your sister. Like, these are really hard things to say about your teenage daughter. And yeah, I think I liked it better when she was saying, oh, well, the taxpayers will be fine restoring this classic vintage house, because that definitely seemed like something that she would say, whereas her being a huge fucking bitch to her own daughter was like, oh, okay. This seems a little out of character.
Which we do kind of get a fun, like, oh, payback bitch, but everyone is just calling her out at the stage.
And booing her. Yeah.
Oh, and she is just taking. And I was like, honestly, good for you, lady.
I mean, she's the mayor. Maybe she deals with this shit a lot.
Exactly. But I mean, again, we've made it like however long in this minisode, and we have not talked about the biggest development, which is, of course, that we get not only a hand-holding scene between Jake and Devin, but also a kiss. And
multiple kisses.
The way, okay, I don't know about you, it transported me back to like my first kiss, where I was, because they do like a quick peck, and then they look and they're like, I liked
we
that.
should do more.
Yeah, like do that again, please. And it was so cute.
It's so cute. These young actors have really good chemistry. And honestly, just the entire way that this is staged, where we get to see the overhead shots of them bike riding, it feels freeing and joyful. And I mean, I know we talk a lot about like, what does queer representation look like in the horror community and this kind of stuff. And this is honestly, I think, really, really valuable and important, because there's a lot going on in this show. There's a lot of ridiculous stuff. Like, we've got characters dumpster diving in medical waste to start this episode. Like, it's kind of bananas. But then we've got the opportunity. This is like a 1-minute scene of just young queer kids making a connection. It's beautifully framed over like the sunrise, and it's genuinely sweet and romantic. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that and talk about how well this is being handled in this like straightforward horror show that's created for the masses, airing on Syfy.
No, you're 100% correct. Like, I didn't ever feel, and I mean, again, maybe it's just because I'm queer, but like, I'd never watched this and I was like, oh wow, they're really like shoehorning this in here.
It feels natural.
It's natural, it's organic, and it feels like something that would actually happen, you know. Like, it's not obviously it's spotlighting the kiss because that it's that's what the scene is about, but it's not like, it's not highlighting the gayness of the kiss. It just is. And it's so like it warmed my heart, and especially coming after like the high of like, oh, also the physical comedy of the three of them like stomping on this bag.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. The kids really get to do some good physicality bits in here. The dumpster diving, Lexi beating up the Tommy doll, and then them almost killing a skunk, and then having their go at this poor Chucky doll.
I will say it was funny though in the hand-holding scene, because we get that kind of effect where like they're standing there, but everyone else is like walking by them really fast.
I love that. I do love that.
I do too, but my husband turns to me and goes, wow, they're really standing there for a long time.
I think it's more representative of like, look at how long this moment feels like it's lasting, right?
That is 100% what it is. It was just one of those things where I was like, oh yeah. Literally.
They've just been there all day. They missed all their classes, but they had a great hand-holding
and no one
scene.
stopped to be like, are you okay?
Do you need to eat? Do you need to go to the bathroom or anything? So I do want to say one interesting piece, just because I'm thinking about my article series. And I watched this and initially was like, well, fuck, I've got nothing to write about because there's nothing super queer that's happening here. And then I realized what's interesting to me is the contrast between the sweetness and the naturalness of what's happening between the two boys, and then the more traditional kind of queer horror lens that we often see, which is like, oh, it's a menage a trois that goes wrong, or it's like lesbian sex that turns murderous. So it was interesting to get a kind of, oh, well, this is what we've come to expect from queers in horror. Like, it's going to end in bloodshed. It's going to be messy. It's going to be lies and secrets and this kind of stuff. But also it can be cute and coming of age and sweet.
Well, I do. I mean, and we're probably not the best ones to go on this journey, but I mean, like, I imagine with the return of Nika and potentially the return of Glenn at some point, Glenn Glenda, there's many a trans readings to be made with this show.
Yeah. I was interested to see how this possession piece of the story is going to play out, because I do think, the opportunity to read into that trans experience. We saw this percolating a little bit when Freaky came out a couple of years ago. So I'm interested to see if we're going to address that, or if it's just going to be like, oh, actually, no, we'd rather not touch it.
Yeah, but I do love your comparison though between like the chaste adorableness of our young teens romance, the queer romance, and then the not the case with what's going on with Tiffany and Chucky Nika.
Yeah.
I will say that in terms of callbacks, I mean, we get the "I'm Tommy," which is from Child's Play 2.
Right.
I thought the Swedish Meatballs line was a little like out of place. I was some of the dialogue that Tilly had to work with. I was kind of like, okay, like this very much seems like for the fans.
It was very much like, hey, do you remember the RV scene from Bride of Chucky? We're going to redo it just to give you that sweet spot.
Yeah, and I think, again, love having Tilly back. I'm excited this is here, but yeah, it felt very much like this feels more like a novelty than it does like, really relevant too much outside of what Nika does to the plot, which hopefully this gets remedied in the coming weeks as we get more of Tilly and Tiffany becomes more of a player, because that's the other thing too. Tiffany hasn't been a major player in this franchise since Seed of Chucky. Like she was in the post-credit scene of Curse, which is a big surprise, and she was in Cult a little bit, but it's still kind of a glorified cameo.
Yeah, I am interested to see, are these returning film players going to be significant parts of the story? And my gut says yes. Like every episode, I think, is going to start to push it further so that these two worlds start to collide, like TV and film meshing together.
Yes.
But again, it's like, I hope it happens organically, because right now it's feeling a little bit awkward.
Well, we're halfway done with the season, so we still have 5 episodes left. My hope, and I don't think we're going to have this, but I just hope that it's not the finale will be where these worlds collide and then set up the future season where it's going to be like, cool, now that you're all caught up, now we can do this thing. I hope that's not the case. I don't think it's going to be the case, but
yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think if that had been the case, we wouldn't have gotten this until later, like maybe episode 7 or 8. This is just me predicting, because of course we don't write television. We don't know how they break it down individual episodes and season long arcs. But yeah, I wouldn't love that, if only because it's always such a big risk when you hinge everything on getting a second season, because a lot of shows don't.
Yes. No, I agree. And I mean, we'll wrap up, but I mean, like, I do think as a whole, like this, we have so much of when you're rebooting something, or when you're adapting like a big, I don't know, comic book or whatever, it's always like, oh, we're going to make the first one the origin story. It's going to be set up before we get to the good stuff for the sequel. And it's like, no, don't do that.
No.
And
give us a natural story. Hook us with that. Don't make us wait.
The show, for the most part so far, has done a very good job of doing of having its cake and eating it too.
Yes. Yeah. Or having its Swedish meatballs and eating them too.
Okay. I mean, well, any predictions for next week?
I'm hopeful that we'll get a better sense of where Tiffany and Nika are going, either geographically or narratively. But I mean, we've got a beheaded principal in front of literally the entire town. So I'm curious to see how Devin's mom is going to handle this, because she was on the back burner here, but I do think, like, are we still going to be able to blame Jake and the doll for this?
I hope that this puts him out of it, because he's not anywhere near there, but maybe it'll double down and she'll be like, no, Jake did this.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's a character that needs like some kind of something juicy to ground her.
I think we're going to have Devin standing up to his mom more now that he and Jake have quote unquote consummated their relationship.
Oh my God.
I mean, in a kiss, not in a sexy way.
And this is how we get in trouble.
That's it. Okay, well, listeners, let us know what you think is going to happen next week, and let us know what you thought of Little Lies. Well, I'm going to double quote myself, but until next week, we can cross out Little Lies.
One of these days, we're going to get it. Yep. And with that, we can cross out Chucky Queers.